Good morning, everybody. Wave as you're getting in. Tell us you're here. It's been 2 weeks. We haven't seen you in 2 weeks. We haven't seen anybody in 2 weeks. I'm going to grab Barbara. Good morning, Douglas. Barb, there we go. Good morning. My name is Tamara Grand. You're watching from Tamara Grand Art. This is No Brush Required with myself and Barbara Reed.
Hey, did I hear you say we haven't seen each other for 2 weeks?
I know.
That's crazy.
It's a while. Just going to volume you up. There, I can hear you better now.
Yeah, volume me up. I'm also going to play around. I've got this new gizmo that I'm using, and I've kind of faced it to the window, but I can't see. Yeah, no, that's okay.
Douglas says hello. Yes, I know we've been off for 2 weeks. We've had lots of stuff going on. Yeah. Hey, Lori, how are you? Everything's good on your end right now, or stable?
Well, things are still ongoing, but it's been a not too bad couple of days. My sister's here from out west, so that's great. We're having lots of good visits. Yeah. But yeah, there's a few more things to do. Next week should be a whole new story, I hope. So.
Okay, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Fingers and toes crossed. So yeah. How about yourself? How are things?
It's been a well, my cat's been sick, so that's been a bit of a downer. But he's actually better now. He's stable, which is great. And eating more, which he's back to his normal pudgy self, wanting food, which is good. But you know what? I had to tell you, I did the most exciting thing on the weekend. I went out for an art date with an Instagram art friend from Vancouver who I'd never met before, Devin, if she's here. Hi, Devin. And we went and saw Bobby Berger's newest art installation. She's a West Vancouver artist and quite well known in our local art community. Her stuff is amazing and it's huge, and it's so inspiring to see walls of paintings that are like 6 by 8 feet, 6 of them in a row that you could just walk into. Yeah. So I came home and I'm looking around my studio space going, I don't have enough space to paint that big.
I know. Did you see how little is behind me right now?
I know.
I said to Roman, I have no art to put behind me. I have
that's why I see the outside.
This little guy.
Yeah.
Oh, and this little guy. That's it.
So it's just so inspiring to get out in the world again and see other people's art in person, as opposed to on like our little 4 by 6 inch or 2 by 6 inch screens, right? Yeah. So inspiring and invigorating. And I came home and you saw what I did. I'll tell you guys more about it later, but I did take a box cutter to a painting, but that's for another day.
That's rather violent.
There's a teaser for you, okay? You have to destroy to create sometimes.
Yeah.
So, shall we invite today's guest on? I know everybody's waiting to chat with her and to see who we have here.
Listen to us?
No, I know.
Unwell mothers and sick cats.
Yes, I know. So I'll grab her and you can start.
You grab her, and I'm going to apologize in advance because I'm just going to introduce our special guest as Bibby, and I'm going to let Bibby pronounce her last name. Tamara and I have been back and forth. Jill, I don't even want to try. I'm going to butcher it. Hi, Bibby.
Hi.
All the way from Sausalito, California, right?
Right.
Yeah, awesome.
I'm going to turn you up here a second. There we go. Okay, cool.
Before we do anything, we need you to say your last name.
Okay. A good one. Growing up, when I'd be in school, the teachers would be going through the list and they'd get to my last name and they'd be and the best way to remember it is Gignilliat. Like I drink Gignilliat, even though I don't. And
so
I'm not
does Tamara.
Right now. And then once they got my last name, they'd have trouble getting my first name because my real name's Elizabeth and Bibby was given to me at age 3 when I couldn't say Elizabeth. So.
Aw, that's so cute though.
Gotcha, and it's stuck.
Yes.
Yeah, I was nicknamed Tammy at 3 because I couldn't say Tamara, but I managed to ditch that somewhere along the way.
Well, we are so excited to have you here. I can't tell you, we've had a 2-week hiatus from doing No Brush Required, and we can't imagine a better guest to have to get us back into the groove of doing these chats. So
So pardon us if we're rusty.
We're a little rusty. I'm a little creaky. Yeah, definitely.
That's okay.
Yeah. So Gignilliat, I love that because I'm wearing actually a T-shirt that is from a distillery in Elora, Ontario, and they're known for gin. So I think we have a theme. I think we got a theme.
Perfect.
So,
Perfect. I'll pretend I'm sipping gin.
yeah, I'd like to be. For sure. So, you know what? We just want to dive right in. You've got a really interesting background, Bibby. You didn't start out as an artist, from what we understand. So, would you walk us through a little bit of your history and some of the more diverse professions you've had?
Sure. Well, I'll start by saying that I painted at age 10, and then I had a critical teacher and became a perfectionist. So I stopped painting. And then pursued a number of different careers, from being a computer programmer to a database marketer at Williams-Sonoma, adventure travel bike leader with Backroads. And then I went to culinary school and ran a cooking business for 20 years where we did hands-on cooking parties and corporate team building events. But the whole time in the back of my mind, I knew I was an artist and I wanted to get back there. And occasionally I would take a class here and there and I was always the worst one in the class because it was representational. And so I ended up hearing about a Nick Wilton class from some party, and there was one spot left in the class, and I went home that night and wrote to Ferris, and I got the spot. And I still was the worst one in the class. I wasn't getting the concepts at all. But what I did have was a lot of determination, and I was still running my company at the time, but I got a space in this amazing building that I'm in now, which is in Sausalito, where there's 150 working artists in the building.
Wow.
And so I got a space. I felt like an imposter, didn't even want to leave the studio because I didn't feel like I was very good. But I realized shortly thereafter, after I took a class with a guy named Michael Cutlip, who's a collage artist, that was more my medium. And I realized also that that part of the design for my work is all about the texture, and I needed and wanted to learn to build texture. And so I learned that and started becoming better and better. And as Julia Cameron says in her book, The Artist's Way, if you really want to know what you should do in life, look at what you loved as a child. So I realized, like, this is what I should be doing. And so I sold my business in 2017, and I've been working full-time as an artist. And during COVID, I started an online class, and I now have 600 people in that online class, and I teach workshops out of my studio. So I'm combined teacher and artist. And making a nice living, better living actually than as my, running my former company. So,
wow.
No such thing as a starving artist.
No such thing. I think the fact that you are in this building, and I can't even visualize what it must look like, but you said 150 artists.
Yes.
Like, just must be oozing creativity and inspiration every time you set foot in there.
It is, and the beauty of it is they're like if I get stuck on a painting, I walk down to Gordon Studer, which I see is on the call, or Andrew.
I love his work.
I'll say, come on up. Can you look at something and give me some feedback? Or artists share like show contacts or gallery contacts and that kind of thing with each other. So it's all about. I'd like to think that this building is all about sharing information and resources and that kind of thing. So,
but it's the perfect blend of being isolated and working on your own, because you have to do the work on your own, but then still having that social outlet, that connectivity. And I mean, a lot of us, we work in our own studios at home, and we don't have those people to share with, which is why we're here.
I know. Actually, I imagine if I was there, I would be studio hopping like half the day, just going and sticking my head into everybody's space and seeing how they're doing.
Yeah, and there are some days where I don't get much done, but that's okay. But I would say that I've probably gotten 20 people into this building, and a lot of them have spaces at their home or another location, and they'll be like, "Oh, I don't need another studio." I've at home. And then finally I wear them down and they come into the building and they kind of get what this is about. And then it just transforms their careers because it's like this collective creative energy.
So you just came off an Open Studios weekend or two, right?
Double weekend.
So, tell us about it. How did it go?
It was good. It was interesting. It's sort of interesting doing open studios during COVID. So some people were in masks, some people weren't. But a lot of people were thrilled to get out of the house and into a creative environment and other people's art and being inspired and that kind of thing. The longer that I do open studios, the more I realize it's less about selling and more about engaging people. And there was probably I'll tell you two funny stories from it. One was a touching story and one was a funny story. So I'll start with the touching one. This woman came up to me and said how during COVID, her husband died. And I don't know if he died of COVID or not, but she said that she loved going to my Instagram reels every, like when I post and other posts and stuff, because it gave her some joy during a time that was very difficult for her. So that was like, wow, that's worth the 2 weekends in and of themselves, right? Like that you're having an effect like that on somebody. And then the other one that was just so rewarding was this older man came in and he kind of reminded me of my dad. We had this great repartee, and I often get awarded the best floor in the building because it's, I create with reckless and all over the floor. And this man loved my floor, and I said, well, it kind of looks like my drop cloth. And I had a drop cloth on a table with some art on top of it. And he's like, oh my God, I love the drop cloth. And I said, well, years ago, I said, I've sold 2 drop cloths at Open Studios. And one of them was on my wall, and a guy came in and said it was the best art in the whole building. And no one's selling it, but I said, well, he said, would you sell it? And I said, sure. So I sold it a couple of years ago for $400. And this guy thought that story was so funny, and he's like, how much will you give me for that drop cloth? And I'm like, well, it'd be $400. And so anyway, he ended up buying the drop cloth, and so that just made my day, just hilarious, right?
Yeah, yeah. So don't throw anything away.
Yeah.
No, and the funny like freedom of a drop cloth where you're not even thinking anything. So that just shows you, he loved it. And I posted on Instagram, and a lot of people are commenting on it, and so it's funny.
What does that tell us? Really, there's a story there or something to pursue.
Right?
Well, it goes back to that whole question, and this ties into your past and your present, that the analytical side and the intuitive side of making art and being creative and how those things play together. And I was quite curious that your background was in computer programming, because that's a very, very analytical way of approaching the world, and your art is the opposite. At least that's how I see it. I'd love you to kind of talk about how those things fit together for you.
Yeah, I talk about that a lot when I teach, because I got, at the same time I was becoming an artist, I got a vocational master's in energy medicine. And it brought me a lot more into my intuitive mind versus my analytical mind, because I'm an Aquarius, I can be very analytical and mental. And so what I try to teach in my class is, in the morning part of my class, it's all about just being in the intuition, and I have people laying down papers in a no-think way, and then we bring in the analyzer in the afternoon. And ultimately, art, I think, is a dance between the intuition and the analyzer. And what often happens, I see in my class, is that people, and this is analytical, I think, get attached to a certain part of the painting and they're gripping on it. And Michael Singer says in his book, The Untethered Soul, like the most important thing is to remove the rocks, and the rocks, I think, are attachments, and then the flow can come through you. And so the more and more I, in my life, have let go of attachments and control and stuff, the better my art's gotten. And I think it's the same in art. So you do need the analyzer, because you need to come in and make sure the design is working. But the more you can be in in an intuitive place, I think the art is better and looser and freer. and more appealing. And that's why I think the drop cloth was so appealing, because it's completely made from a non-analytical place.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have anything that you do with your students, or things that you tell them that help them to sort of make that connection? Because, it's so difficult sometimes, even when you tell yourself, we need to get out of our heads. How do we actually do that?
Well, I just have them in the morning. They're just laying down papers and on a panel, and I kind of demo it, and it's not, I tell them, don't use your favorite papers. Most of it's going to get covered up, create a couple layers on here. And I think that helps. And a lot of times they'll report after the morning, like, that was so free and fun. I haven't had that much fun in a while, because, they're sort of not supposed to get into the analyzer. Then in the afternoon, we talk about composition, and you kind of get into the analyzer, but then just have to try to keep going, noticing that, and not getting stuck there. And I usually tell them, like, if there's a place in your painting that you're attached to, that's exactly the place you have to let go of.
Yes. Yes.
And that's
do something to disrupt it, right?
Exactly. It's super, super hard for people, because they're gripping usually onto this one spot of their painting. And I've had that too, where like a week will go by and I just am so clinging to one spot of the painting. And the moment I let go of it, then the painting flows again, and it comes through in a much better way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a speed bump.
Exactly.
And you work around it, you work under it, and you're still preserving it. And it's like, just get it out of there. Like, you've lived with it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I see people just gripping and gripping and gripping for dear life. And it's like, I see myself doing that, like, oh, that's a favorite script, I don't want to let it go. But then I've gotten better and better over the years at just completely letting it go. And that helps you with editing your work and everything, because editing is really key more often than not. Like I always tell my students, you want to have a very clear star of the show, like a very clear focal point. And more often than not, something isn't working, it's because they've got like 6 focal points, and the viewer doesn't really know where to go. Yeah. So you want to be kind of in charge of where the viewer goes. So the way to do it is have a very clear focal point where they're the star of the show, but then all the other pieces are like supporting characters in a movie, Yeah, no,
that's a great way to look at it. The way I discovered you was I put a question out on Instagram looking for kind of a short, quick, but really, really helpful online workshop to take. And so many people sent me your name. So I signed up for your mixed media with Bibby. And it was exactly that. It was, I could do one of your modules and then go and apply things immediately. So I was wondering, what's kind of the difference between your online workshop versus an in-person workshop?
Well, I always think that an in-person workshop is great because you get the energy of everyone else in the room. I'm basically teaching the same thing in both. But, the in-person is great because you get, you're playing off of other people. You can see what they're doing. And I do think there's something kind of good feel, art, inspirational environment for art. However, the beauty of the online class is, during COVID, a lot of people I had no intention of ever doing an online class. But during COVID, my income went to zero for a couple months. And right at the start of COVID, I'm like, shoot, how am I going to make a living? And all the people around me. And
it's not me.
Around the world.
Bibby, we're losing you.
We're losing you, Bibby. And I know you said something wonderful.
Oh, am I back? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, now.
Yes. Okay, I hate to say, can you repeat that?
You were spinning. Your bubble, you're still spinning.
Oh, wow. What's happening? I'm clear on this end.
Okay. I don't know.
I don't know either.
Can you hear me?
She's spinning.
We can hear you, but your connection isn't great.
Okay, let me just try something real quick.
Okay. It can't be because we're in Canada. Can it?
A?
Maybe it's because we're in Canada.
Am I back?
You're cutting in and out. you're back. You were cutting in and out just a bit. So keep talking and we'll let you know.
Okay.
Go make a panic face.
Okay. During COVID, people were writing me from around the world saying, can you offer something online? And so I was like, okay. And so I filmed it and offered it. And I'm thrilled to say, I think I now have like 675 people from around the world in the class. And I think the beauty of an online class is you can watch the modules over and over and over again until you get it. So, you know, I tell people it's great to do both if you can, because you get online in-person experience, able to ask questions. Learn the material, because I think that it's hard to learn everything in one day. And it takes times if you want. So, are you guys hearing me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's true. You're spinning again. Barb, are you okay?
I'm sort of catching. Hopefully it'll settle down. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was you talk about letting go. I think I got really excited about collage after taking your workshop. And one of the things you would demonstrate is laying out all these really interesting papers, and you would find such interesting things, and then you'd cover it all up with paint. She's spinning.
Yes.
She heard you though.
So, you know, I collect a lot of things. And
the internet gods are not being friendly today.
Do you want me to try calling you back? Do you want me to call you back?
Why don't you X out and come back in?
Does that mean we lose the beginning? Oh, shoot.
Oh, no, it doesn't, because we're fine as long as I stay on.
Okay, we're staying on. You go come back.
Okay, Xing you out.
We'll do a little tap dance or something.
Yeah. But Bibby, make sure you're on 5G. They said, Bibby, make sure you're on 5G. I know. I don't. It's not you and I. It's just because I have a good connection here today. I know that. And when I start to circle, then you know that when I start circling the drain, then you know we're in trouble. But
here she comes.
I'm not, and I was on 5G all along. I don't know what was happening.
I don't know. I wonder sometimes if it's the earbud things or I think I'm the only person who doesn't wear them for these.
Oh.
Okay. So where were we? I can't remember.
Okay, you cover everything up in paint, which to me is, you talk about having to trust the process. So you've put down these really amazing papers, and you say you find these like billboard remnants and things like that. I have yet to find that, but makes me want to go to California. And then you cover it all up with paint. Talk about that kind of process.
Well, so my process begins with layering down collage, putting a layer of collage, and then covering it using a trowel, mostly with paint, but I leave little windows, and you know, the trowel naturally creates windows. If anyone doesn't know what a trowel is, it's a mason tool. Highly recommend them. And I have some reels on my Instagram page showing me laying down the paint with the collage on top of the collage. Anyway, point is that it leaves these little windows, and so it creates this depth in the work. And to get to your point about covering up papers, first of all, I gathered so many papers, and now everyone gives me papers. And I even said on the Louise show, Louise Fletcher, that ask a friend to send you papers, like maybe someone in another country, or you know, if you guys have a big following, maybe you do a swap or something with people, because you never know. My friend Andrew, who I think is on the show right now, went to Germany with his wife, and they collected billboard scraps for me and brought them back. And it's
wow.
But anyway, you could take those scraps and you could copy them at Kinko's or FedEx or Staples. I recently did that, where I copied a bunch of them and I blew them up, and so they look like posters. And so there's a million ways to get cool scraps. And I I tell the story about there was a store going out of business in Mill Valley, and I went into the store. They had a huge going out of business sale sign. And I went in there and I said, when the sale's over, would you give me those scraps? So I'm shameless, actually. But if there's something you're really worried about covering up, like love letters from your mom and dad, go make copies of them and use the copies in your work, because now we can make such good copies that, you know, you can tell that they're, if they're a copy. Can't even tell.
Yeah.
Well,
no, and that work is so personal. It's so personal
Yeah.
to include those mementos in it.
Yeah.
So
and I've done commissions where I put people's personal mementos into the piece. And last year I had a commission for University of San Francisco. There was a doctor who had passed, and the colleagues, as a commemoration, that the doctor gave me all his personal memorabilia, which I collaged in, and I covered most of it up, little windows of it, and it was sort of a dedication to him.
That kind of segues into another question I had. I know you're working on some big scale work, so it sounds like you're taking materials that you find and then blowing them up at Staples. Okay, so that answered that question, because I'm thinking, how on earth do you do it? Because you're getting the same effects on these huge pieces, like they look like billboard size scraps. So I guess that's a good workaround.
I went to the Alameda Flea Market and got these wonderful metal signs that, you know, of numbers, and that I've been gluing on with power my paintings and such. So, or nail them on, however it works, depending on what you're using as your substrate. But you just have to think bigger. Yeah. That's all. And have more muscles to carry them.
Well, the panels must get really heavy, some of those large panels you work on.
They do, and that's been a little bit challenging. And so I've been also working on canvas, and I prefer to work on panel because you know, you have that firmness of the panel, but I've been getting some pretty good results on canvas as well. Pretty much the same. People come into my studio and they can't tell what's panel and canvas until you go to try to lift it.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I see a lot of squares behind you. We always are curious about people's preferred formats, whether they like squares or rectangles.
This is probably my most popular size, and those are 24 by 24s. And I group them, I kind of create them as a series, and I group them in a grid. And more often than not, someone will purchase a grouping of them. So someone came to Open Studios and took 3 home to hang above the couch, but someone else that I'm working with still is looking at 6 of them. And I'm hoping one day someone walks in and wants all 12.
Wow, that would be awesome.
That would be a corporate client, right? A corporate client who had that space, maybe.
Yeah, house out here, you know.
Yes. And you do totem panels too.
I do, and it's interesting because I usually create them vertically, but more often than not, people will hang them horizontally over a bed or in a dining room or over a couch or whatever. Yeah, they're my current obsession.
Yeah, I was going to say that they're Barb's current obsession.
Yeah, well, mostly because they fit my 45 square foot studio space because they can be super long, but I can still manage them. And your studio, I think I heard, is 1,500 square feet.
That's correct.
That's bigger than our condo. I'm just pea-green with envy over here.
Oh, it's funny. When I first got into this studio, I came from a studio that was like 300 square feet, and I had to learn to work differently. Yeah. I never expected that, and I was sort of overwhelmed by it, and I was getting kind of ADD, and I didn't know what to do with myself. And I went to a mentoring session with a guy you might know named Mark Eanes, and he
took his
course. Need to narrow your parameters. So, so he told me to pick 3 colors and just work with those 3 colors, and that really helped me to kind of find a rudder for myself in a huge studio at first. And now I've got it, you know, I've kind of got a system down, but took me about a year to get used to the studio. And now I'm feeling almost like I need a bigger one. Haha.
No, I can't.
I'm ripping over my work. So.
Yeah.
I feel like if I were to move into a studio that size, all I would do was create way more pieces of work that I didn't finish. It would just allow me to expand my unfinished work.
So how do you get yourself to finish?
I run out of space to do anything. And I'm at that point right now. I have my tables are all covered with smaller pieces. My wall's covered pretty much. And I just have to tell myself, you got to finish something. You got to finish it.
Yeah.
So put everything else away. Pick a couple of pieces, move everything else, turn it all to the wall, stack it in the corner. And today you're just going to focus on these 2 or 3 pieces, right? Sometimes it works
that way.
And whether a piece is done.
Oh, that's the question always, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's your answer?
No pressure.
Well, I think I often know it in my body.
Yeah.
It feels done to me, but I will say that there'll be times when I think a piece is done, and then 6 months later I'll be looking at it and I'll be like, oh, that could use this or could use that. So I've definitely gone back into pieces and worked on them some more. But when there's a piece that I just feel it in my whole being that is done, it feels really good, that work that often will sell first.
Right. Yeah, the piece that you love the most.
Yeah.
It is that knowingness of this is done, this is good, it works.
And then you almost have to give yourself permission to kind of ignore it because you just have to allow that there's nothing more that can be done. So you can't go back in and get really pokey with it. Do you apply like a cold wax finish on top, or do you finish your pieces a different way? Because that was the Nick system, right?
A lot of people think I use cold wax when they look at my work, but it's actually the UV Varathane varnish that I use. And it's across the room. If you want me to go, I could go get the can and show you. You want me to get that real quick?
Sure.
Okay.
Grab the can.
Right back.
It's not like us where we just reach across our desk because we don't have any other space. I can grab all
here.
my equipment right here.
Or you trip over it. I would love for Bibby to do a walkthrough of that studio because it's gorgeous. Okay.
Okay, we got that.
UV, mold, and mildew, and I put 3 coats on top as my touch, but it's also my glue. So it's one-stop shopping, which is cool.
Right.
But I'll take this off the. Okay, now I've got to turn it around the other way. Let's see.
Maybe one question you could answer as you're walking around. Someone just asked how many pieces you're typically working on at a time.
I typically work on about 3 at a time, maybe. So you can kind of see from the doorway into my studio.
So beautiful.
We're coming.
And you have furniture.
Can we do a sleepover?
Yeah, that's happened. So these are some pieces I did with the man who I make my wood panels and frames with. And this one in the corner got in the De Young Museum for the De Young Open. And it's kind of an assemblage of a bunch of repurposed materials. And we put it together. And then over here, we've got some cyanotypes that I did. And what's so cool is I did these from my garden. These are all agapanthus that are grown in my garden at different stages. And when I was doing the cyanotypes, what was interesting is the paper that I was doing them on had a lot of organic marks in them. So I took those organic marked papers and created this whole series on the wall here. This 12 grouping of 12 in the grid. Yeah. And they each of them have one of these cyanotypes in them. Kind of background paper with and then coming over here we've got the totems, the 2 totems.
Zoom in on a totem for me. Oh my god.
So
I love how you work in kind of the I'm going by what I can see on my phone, but it's almost like brown papers and then with those
primers. You know what that is? You know what that is? That's masking paper. So, you know, when you paint your house and you
Oh,
cover the baseboards with that masking
Right.
paper, that's what that is. And this piece is the one I was mentioning that is a really big piece. It's 72 by 80. No, 80 by 72. And that's the metal letter that I found at the flea market. And then over here is another one, a 5. And this is a fun piece that got a lot of play at Open Studios. It's called Love Letters. And these are love letters right here. So there's love letters on both sides, and it's a diptych, but it's framed. And so they work really nicely together. And this is probably my favorite piece right
I
now.
love this one. I know
Yes.
this one. Yeah.
It's called Temptation. And it's made with a lot of clear piano music that I got on Etsy. And then this one just sold last week. It's 80 by 60.
Wow.
It's called Journey. And then coming back, this is my biggest piece in the studio. It's a made with a lot of shopping bags from
That's great.
that I had left over during the pandemic.
Wow.
And then a lot of handmade scraps, hand dipped papers in my sink. I dip papers in paint tints and dye them. And then this is a really busy one, which is kind of fun because it's got a lot of scraps from growing up, including my stamp collection, old recipes from when I was a chef, and postcards from the family. And then coming over here, we're back to some of the old player piano music pieces. And this one's really dynamic. And then this is my most recent painting right here, which reminds me of Marrakesh. So I called it Marrakesh. Right. And it's got a lot of hand painted papers in it. So I took the masking paper and painted it. And then here's 2 more over here, a couple more, 3 more over here. And one of my friends had suggested hanging these gallery style. So I've got paintings everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a lot.
It is.
You know what?
A lot of energy.
I can't even tell you what seeing this space this way does for me. This to me is my dream space. And your work just, it's so part of it.
It just exudes joy and energy, right?
Yeah.
That's what you see. Like, you look like you love what you're doing.
Yeah.
I really do. I get the chills when you just said that. I just really do. I can't tell you enough. And having done a number of careers where I was, just so hard trying to figure out what to do in life. I just feel so grateful that I get to come here every day with this group of artists and also to do something that I love. And hopefully I can inspire others to do the same.
Okay, so Tamara, I think we need a road trip because I honestly, I'm not kidding. I think we need to arrange another, like a workshop, in-person workshop with Bibby, and then we just hang out in this building and absorb as much as we possibly can.
Oh, that would be so fun.
Hey, take us to the sofa area, because I think even your sofa is artistic. It goes with everything.
So the sofa is crazy. Years ago, I bought a place and it had been owned by an interior designer prior to me. And she had this chaise, and it's like this periwinkle chaise that looks so cool, but it's not very comfortable.
Oh, it doesn't matter. It looks cool.
Yeah.
It's more about the vibe.
It looks wow. So what's a typical day for you, Bibby? Like what's your typical work day?
I'll get here between usually 10 and 11, and I'm here usually till about 4 or so. But I tend to work most days, even on the weekend. And, during COVID, it was one of the few places that we could actually go. And the fact that I didn't have a studio mate was a good thing, because some of the people in the building that had studio mates couldn't go at the same time. So I just hung out here. At first it was really lonely because nobody was here, but I got a ton of work created during that stretch. And now the reason I'm telling you all that is now I'm having to try to make myself work less, because I kind of got into the habit of being here every day, and I want to try to have some more balance. So anyway, I often go home around 4 or 5, take a nap or exercise, and then I'm in bed early on the early side. But yeah, but I'm here most days. Most days.
I've
Do you
got a
play
bunch of
music when you're
sorry.
in there? Oh, sorry. I have so much I want
Yeah.
to ask.
I've
Yeah.
got a whole bunch of questions that are lined up too, so I'll pull some of those on in a
Okay,
second.
I'll keep one eyeball on the time too, so we don't lose this. But music, can you blast music in there? Or are you going to be disturbing the neighbors?
I can play it to a degree, but I do get complaints from the neighbors, so I have to be careful. My old studio no one cared, but this studio, they do care, so I have to be kind of careful.
Okay,
That's
here's
the only
one.
negative I can see. That would be
Yeah,
it.
here's one for you. When did you feel comfortable calling yourself an artist? Which I think is a great question.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Well, so it's interesting. I'm self-taught, and for now 8 years, it'll be 8 years this September, I've been doing art. And I just recently have found myself feeling really comfortable calling myself an artist. I finally feel like my art is really good.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel that way for so long. And I kept doing it, and it would sell and everything. But I finally feel like I've taught myself enough. Not there's way more to learn. I'm going to be studying with 3 people this year, and I found all the right teachers at all the right times. So I have, and I would call people over to mentor me. And there was one woman that was really hard on me, but I loved having her come over because you just knew exactly where you stood. And she'd come over and she'd be like, that's terrible, or you don't have enough pictorial space, or this or that. But I would learn that way. So I highly recommend finding a mentor, or, studying with people till you really feel like you are where you want to be.
Well, your body of work is so you. Like there's nothing there that looks like, it's maybe not so much Bibby. But hey, is one of those mentors Rob Zott by any chance?
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I'm going to New York this year to study with him. I have never studied with him, and I've signed up for a class in early September with him.
Well, guess what? You're going to see us there too.
Oh my God, I'll get to meet you. Oh, how fun is that? My friend and fellow artist Jackie Sherman is going with me, so we're excited.
Yeah. Well, we've got a whole Canadian contingent coming. We've had Rob on this show twice, and he's going to come back again for a 3rd time, and we just love him to pieces, and we cannot wait. And it'll be great to meet you too.
It'd be so great, so great.
Yeah.
What a delight.
Yeah. Kind of a surprise, eh?
Yeah. Well, I knew because I saw your address on an email. Like something came from the Visionary Project a month or so ago, right, where they were telling us about what to expect. And I just looked at she didn't hide the CCs, so I just looked to see who else was coming. I'm like, oh, that's exciting.
So exciting.
And that's going to be oil paint. That's very different. I don't think he's going to be incorporating collage that weekend. I think it's all his oil paint techniques. And
okay.
So we're not oil painters, but we don't care. We don't.
Yeah. Maria says she's going. Maria Lopez is going too. I don't know Maria, so we're going to meet you too.
Yeah.
I saw someone asking like how you find a mentor, and I mean, there's a couple ways. Like I took classes with people, and I asked them if they would come over and mentor me. And there was someone in my building that's, kind of mentors a couple people. And I did this whole thing with her where she was on call, and I could just reach out to her at any point in time and have her come down. She was like the doctor on call. I can't get any more with her, but I would say like I'm going to the Anderson Ranch this summer, and I always like to pick people that I've never heard of before, that are even from another culture, because I want a really different perspective as I'm approaching the art. And so the guy I'm studying with there is Rico Gaston. And I have no idea, I don't know what it's going to be like, but hopefully I'm going to learn a lot from him. And one of the pivotal experiences I ever had going to the Anderson Ranch and studying with a guy named Will Downs. And I remember on the first day, I was he got me, like it wasn't cookie cutter teaching, like wasn't applying his teaching the same to everybody. He realized that everybody was different.
Mm-hmm.
And so he came over to me and I said, I'm kind of stuck in my head. And he said, take off your shoes. And next thing you know, I had charcoal between my toes and I was drawing with my feet. And then he was put a paintbrush in my mouth and drawing with the paintbrush in my mouth. And I completely cut loose and created some of the most interesting work I've ever created there, because he was pushing me. But he was also pushing people in their own direction too. So every class was being pushed in a different direction for them. So that's a sign, I think, of a really good teacher.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, wow. And I think that that's an interesting story because it pulls together a lot of characteristics, you know, the key characteristics about you and how you've been successful, which is to be open and willing to try new things, to not be afraid to step outside your comfort zone, and to take feedback from other people, because that's really a hard thing for a lot of artists to do, especially if we're just getting started. You know, putting ourselves out there on social media is one thing, but then actually interacting with someone who might give us feedback that's not positive is a hard thing to do.
Yeah, but it's the only way you're going to get better. And I'm so wanting, so wanting to, like, that's my Myers-Briggs personality, is like, be the best you could. So I'm going to constantly be a learner in my whole life.
Do you see yourself as being an artist now, from now until the day you die? Because I know you've had other careers, other professions, but is this kind of do you feel like this is your true calling? This is what's going to sustain you for the next several decades?
Yes, and I also feel like there's a spiritual component. So I think that what's going to happen, if I had to guess, is that you know, right now it's more like art's number one, and then the spiritual side of me is number two. I have a feeling a flip-flop. So that's what I think.
And I haven't really, sorry, go ahead.
Somebody was saying, I think they're connected, and somebody, but you know, there's so many lessons to be learned in art that are spiritual, non-attachment, surrendering to the work. And the more you surrender, the more I think you're able to channel the art. And so, you know, the last person that came to my studio on Sunday, and Sunday was a slow day, so I was a little down about the day. And she came into my studio and she was just like, oh my God, it's just touched a very deep spiritual part of my heart. And I see that you're connecting with your spirituality as you're working on your art. It's so clear to me. So she just got my art, and I was like, oh, I know that I have a spiritual side, but I didn't realize it was coming through so much on my art. And she noticed that. And so I'm not really sure where that's going to go, but I do think I'm going to use art and spirituality in some way going forward. I'm not really sure.
Yeah,
that's
but how exciting
because
the possibilities, right?
Yeah. One of the questions that just popped up, this sort of links in, because I think of spirituality and sort of emotion as being similar, but not the same. And one of the questions, I'm just going to pop it up, was asking, when I create, I need to be emotionally invested in my work. Do you feel that way? What emotions do you draw on most?
Oh, I love that question. Well, I definitely am drawing on emotions when I work. And sometimes when I'm feeling really sad, I create my best work. I think that's interesting. So I don't draw on one specific emotion, although I do think even if I'm sad, art brings me such joy. And I remember when I was running my company and doing art on the side, and I'd come here at night weekends, like I'd have this really stressful, like, the beauty of art right now is I'm just the CEO of me. But when I had my company, at one point I had 60 employees and it was super stressful. And there was one difficult employee I had, and it was just eating me alive. But I'd come to the studio and I could just escape completely and go by, and I wouldn't even think about how stressful it was. And then when I was trying to sell my company, it was super stressful, and I would come and again and get lost in art. So I definitely draw on a whole range of emotions, from joy to sadness and everything in my not one particular emotion, but I think the important thing is to be available to all emotions. And one of my spiritual teachers talks about radical gratitude, because if you're trying to block an emotion, there's a block in you, and so the flow can't go through. So it's just like opening up to all the emotions and letting them come out on the canvas in whatever form.
I love that.
Yeah, me too. It's like your playground. You've created this incredible playground for you. And I can't even imagine what it must feel like. I can sort of imagine, but when you say you step in there and you just feel so lucky, and again, there's that gratitude just for the life you've created. So inspiring.
It wasn't easy. I don't make it sound like it just happened overnight.
No, of course not.
It reminds me, I just rewrote my art statement for this class I'm going to be taking. I had to rewrite it. And it's funny that you mentioned playground. And here's my first statement, the first line of my artist statement. Each day as I step into my studio, I am entering a playground, a workout for taking risks, letting go of attachments, and experimenting with new ideas.
Wow.
So it's funny that you mentioned the playground.
Well, that's how it appears to me. And that's kind of the way that you come across anytime I see you in a video, or it's obviously here too. You just like, this is just such a great kinetic space. Like it's just, it appeals to all the senses, right?
Thank you.
It does.
Here's a little trick. Can I tell you one last thing about the open studios?
Yes.
I had cinnamon and vanilla boiling on my stove in here.
Nice.
To create an open house feeling.
Yeah, I had the music going. I had the, the cinnamon going so that people walked in, and, you want to appeal to all the senses when someone comes into your studio. So you've got the sight, got the sound with the music, you got the smell going, and then got the wine for the taste.
Absolutely. And for the artist.
Anyway.
That's so wonderful.
So exciting. Do you have another open studio coming up, or is that it for a while?
Not for a couple months now. That I'm aware of. We may change things, so we'll find out. We do this fun thing in the building that's called Artists at Work, where we're actually working, and people can come around and see us working and learn about our process. So a lot of people love attending the event because you can learn. It's way more interactive, and sometimes people bring kids, and we'll let them jump in, or we'll let adults jump in, or whatever.
I'd be up for that.
Yeah,
I think I need to move.
Come and play, right?
Honestly, this sounds like artist nirvana out there. And I mean, we had Nick on, and I know he's in those studios too. And I've taken his
down the hall.
careers. Yeah, and I can't even imagine. Like this building must just be bursting with energy.
I saw somebody just asked what kind of music. I have two playlists that I use either for my classes or for my open studios. One is Ottmar Liebert.
Yes.
He's amazing because there's no vocals. So it's just the music. And so if you're trying to have a conversation with the client, you can really focus without being distracted by words. But then for my classes, I'll often do Pink Martini. And it's one of those stations that everyone likes. Young, old, whatever. It just appeals to everyone.
Did you say it was a station?
It's a Pandora station.
Oh, we don't get we don't.
I don't know
Spotify.
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 You
Okay.
can put on either.
Spotify. Okay.
Hotel Costa is also really good. I love that.
Hotel Pasta.
Costa. Hotel Costa.
See, it's lunchtime.
COSTES. Hotel
Lunchtime
Costa.
in BC. You're getting her hungry.
All right.
We have time for one more question, and I'm going to pull it up because I thought it was an interesting one. Terry asked a question. Do you ever get artist block? If so, how do you get out of it?
That's a good one. Occasionally, I guess I used to get artist block more than I do now. I rarely get it now. But there's a couple ways I think that you can get over that. One is, I love that Julia Cameron says in her book, The Artist's Way, like, take yourself on an artist date. And it might be like going to the museum or going to an art gallery, or Elizabeth Gilbert talks about just do something creative. Maybe you'll cook for a day, or maybe you'll do gardening. So that just helps to kind of just keep the creative juices flowing, but in a different way, and then come back and approach your art. And the other thing I often do is I get out of my I guess it's left brain where you're thinking too much, or your analyzer, and just drawing with the opposite non-dominant hand, or setting up a giant sort of throwaway board on the wall of paper and just going nuts on it. Just loosen yourself up, drawing with the charcoal between your toes, just doing something like that.
Excellent. And don't you find too that the more you work, the less you get those blocks, because there's always just something in the work that leads you to something else.
Usually the block is a result of you clinging to a part of the painting. And so once I let go of that, then the flow starts again. It's back to the Michael Singer statement, like clear the rocks in the river and flow will come through. And the rocks are often attachments. And when you let go, it's when it all flows.
That's amazing. All right. Well, I think we're going to end on that lovely positive note, because we've only got a few minutes till we hit the hour mark, and rumor has it Instagram won't let me save if we go over an hour, or lives don't always save if we go over an hour.
And that scares us.
It does, because this was a great conversation, Bibby. It was so wonderful to chat with you, and I'm really looking forward to meeting you in person in September.
Can't wait. Dinner with you in September, maybe.
Dinner and martinis.
Yeah, or martinis or gin a lot.
All of it.
Okay. All right.
All of it. Thanks so much for your time and sharing your space with us today.
Yeah, thanks, Bibby.
It was great.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks
very much.
Bye.
Makes me want to pick.
Yes. Well, I guess Bibby's gone. Thanks again,
Bibby's gone.
She's gone. So we'll see you guys next week. Just a quick thank you. We asked for suggestions for other artists that you'd like to have on No Brush Required. And we have a list of 35 names that you guys sent us, which is awesome. So Barb and I need to sit down and go through those and start sending out some invitations. But we're always open to ideas. So please message us, especially if you know people who are outside of our sort of general sphere, who might be, great creative people to come and talk to us. That'd be awesome.
Good. I feel like I've just had a shot of vitamin C. So
me too. I'm getting a plane ticket. I'm buying a plane ticket to San Francisco. I'm going.
Seriously. We'll talk.
All right. I will talk to you soon. Have a great rest of your day, my friend. Thanks so much for joining us, guys. Bye.